So we not only have Kimchi, but my wife also has an Ioniq 5, and it broke. Its ICCU failed. And in this video, I'm going to tell you what we did about it. So we leased our Ioniq 5 in May of 2024, and we put on 9,800 miles between May and late December of that year. We left our car at SFO Airport parking. We came back on December 28th to our car, and the battery was completely dead. Not a good sign. First time that ever happened. No indication before then of any failure in the battery or excessive charging or anything else. Fortunately, I was able to get in the car and jump the battery. So tip number one, know how to get into your car with the emergency key if this ever happens, and keep a battery jump pack in your frunk, which is easy to access once you get in the car. So once we got the car jumped and got home, I went and got an AGM battery that on the internet seemed to be one that was used without problem by other Hyundai Ioniq 5 owners. And then I also put one of these Bluetooth battery monitors on the battery, which allowed me from my phone to track what the state of charge was of the battery. There are a lot of other videos that you can find on the internet about what the ICCU is and how it fails. I'll link to one of them up here. And everything was fine for the next 3 weeks. Well, January 23rd, that changed when my wife was taking the kids to school. While driving, she got a check vehicle electrical system. She immediately pinged me and brought the car home, parked it in the driveway, and the battery monitor I put in said the battery wasn't being maintained. It was already at 49% state of charge. So I said, we have to get in the car right now and take it to the nearest dealer, which was only about 10 minutes away. By the time we got it to the dealer, the state of charge in the 12-volt battery was 26%. So it wasn't maintaining the battery, the 12-volt battery, while driving. If there is no 12-volt battery power while you're driving, your car is going to stop and turn into a brick wherever you are on the road. It was pretty serious, and I'm glad we got it to the dealer before it turned into a towing situation. The dealer said it's probably an ICCU failure and said it would take them about a week to diagnose it. Until they can diagnose it, they can't offer us either a loaner car or vouchers for a rental car. We had to go out and rent our own car on our own dime and pay for our own gas in the meanwhile. Now I want to point out that our car got every single software update right after Hyundai issued it, and it was available at the dealer. So the car was completely up to date with its software. It's important that you have all of the updates done because apparently the dealer has a different part that they must order, which gets different priority in getting the ICCU to you if you haven't done all the recall updates. Now, it was on February 1st, our next milestone, where the dealer was able to diagnose our car and confirm that it was an ICCU failure. And the dealer's tune changed, where they said it would be over 2 months, probably 2.5 months. There was no ETA, the part was back ordered, and that they had 7 cars ahead of us that also needed ICCUs put in. That's why on February 4th, after doing some research, I opened a buyback request with Hyundai. Now let's talk a little bit about what buyback is and why car companies do it. So in general, most states have lemon laws. I think every state at this point will have a lemon law. In California, the state where I live, the lemon law is 18 months or 18,000 miles from when the car was new. And then the car needs to be in the dealer for 30 days or more within that 18 months or 18,000 miles out of service. Now, the reason why the manufacturer might want to buy your car back if it's subject to lemon law claims, instead of having you go and litigate the lemon law process, is because if you win your lemon law case, the manufacturer might be forced to buy your car back and then will have to deal with it and sell it themselves, but at a greatly reduced price because it'll be marked as a lemon in the state title records. So manufacturers want to prevent that from happening as much as possible so that they can lose less money on a car they would otherwise have to buy back. Anyway, in our case, I felt that because our car was going to be at the dealer clearly beyond 30 days from what the dealer was telling me, that it was wise to start the buyback process with Hyundai. The way you start the buyback process with Hyundai is just by calling them up and you say you just want to be considered for the buyback program after explaining your experience. I did this on February 4th after getting the diagnosis from the dealer and the dim prospects for getting an ICCU in relatively soon. So it took 8 days from the time I submitted the buyback request for someone to get back to me. February 17th, I got an amazing call from the dealer who said that, surprise, surprise, they received the ICCU. It took them 16 days after their diagnosis and ordering the part for the ICCU to arrive. By the 22nd, the car was ready to go and we had our car back. So we got the car back in 27 days and I just chalked it up to like, hey, you know, things happen to cars, and we got our car back and everything was fine. But out of the blue, on March 8th, I got a call from Hyundai customer support. And it was actually a buyback case manager who was very friendly and told me that Hyundai had decided to buy back our car. The first letter you'll receive from Hyundai is one where they ask for a lot of information in order to put together your formal offer for buyback. So I got them all that information right away. And by March 11th, I received a letter from them offering to formally buy back the car. I'll put a link to that document as well within the description to this video. So the repurchase for my lease was calculated as follows. So it first was the amount actually paid at lease signing, including the first month's lease payment and excluding any rebates that the dealer gave me. B, any additional monthly lease payments that I made over the amount of time I had the car. And then incidental damages from a rental car. And then they have a statutory mileage offset. It is the amount of mileage driven before the first repair attempt for the same problem divided by 120,000 and then multiplied by the purchase price of the vehicle. And that gives them an amount that they deduct from the amount they would otherwise pay you for your lemon law claim. So what they do in a buyback is they literally will cut a check to the lender and then they'll pay you a certain amount to take the car off your hands as well. And then you're free of that car and you can decide what to do next. This is my wife's car and she really liked the car. So we started looking for the 2025 Ioniq 5 because she wanted one of the same car. One great way to do that is to go to the evfinder.com. It'll tell you where any of the inventory is for many EVs anywhere in the country. With any zip code, you can look up to 500 miles away and find the exact inventory of cars, and you can filter down by color and trim and other options as well. So we looked and we found out that, you know, because the 2025 Ioniq 5 is being produced in Hyundai's new plant in Georgia, there was limited supply of the limited all-wheel drive models. So I thought it was pretty ironic and funny that they called it the limited model because really, truly, the supply of it was limited. And what Hyundai did was they sent the models that had rear-wheel drive, limited rear-wheel drive models, to states like California. And they limited the limited all-wheel drive models to states that had snow. So if you live on the East Coast, if you live in the mountain states, or places like Oregon, which get snow, you were golden because you were getting the limited all-wheel drive models. Otherwise, there are no limited all-wheel drives being shipped anywhere else in the country. So unfortunately, I couldn't find any limited all-wheel drive cars anywhere that were coming in the next 2 months in the whole state of California. So I started expanding my search to other states adjacent to California. So I went to Oregon. I went all the way north up to Washington State, like Vancouver, Washington. I also went to Utah. And then I also went to Denver, Colorado, which had even more cars, bigger market than Salt Lake City, but was way further away. So I had a couple dealers going where I basically told them exactly what I wanted. Say I said I was ready to lease the car today, would fly in and do the deal with them and do the transaction. And it was really easy to qualify dealers that way because some would start you in a whole sales pitch and say, come on in and see the car, we don't believe you. Others would say, sure, I'll get back to you with the price. And then they get back to you with a price that's so high and ridiculous, like $900 a month with $7,000 down, that it's not worth it. Others will just say like, well, how much are you expecting in a monthly payment? And then you find others that will actually give you a deal. But you have to have patience and not be afraid to call dealers and talk to them and have no emotion with this. After doing a fair amount of digging, I would say probably a day or two of just calling tons of different car dealers and having them contact me and having annoying salespeople not answer your question or not give you what you want, that I found one dealer in Utah that gave me a good price, that gave me a good lease deal, was transparent on the fees, transparent on the money factor, which is essentially interest for a lease. I was ready to do the transaction with them. The way that they wanted to seal the transaction before I flew out and then drove the car home was for me to give them my credit card for a non-refundable $1,000 deposit and to sign their deal sheet and send it back to them. And so after I sent over all the information to secure the deal that they sent over the paperwork for, including all fees, I gave them my credit card number, I filled out a credit application for them, I started making travel arrangements, they knew all about this. And then the dealer, which by the way is Murdoch Hyundai, don't ever go to them, they then said, quote, "Thank you so very much. My sales manager will craft a new lease proposal. That will include all California license fees and taxes. I can text it or have him email it over for your signature." And I'm like, craft a new lease proposal? The new lease proposal they sent over was $3,100 more in payments a month with more fees. And so they basically just played a bait and switch game with me where they got me further along in the sales process of like being really committed to the car. And then they pulled out charging me more money. So I dissed that dealer right away. So I then went and I contacted my buddy, the Ionic guy. And I asked Corbin where he got his car. And I wound up at Stevenson Hyundai of Frederick, Colorado. And Robert, who is the same salesperson who worked with Corbin and had a great experience. They gave me a fair deal. They played no games with me whatsoever. They even found a car that was in sooner than the one that had the spec, that was still on a truck on the way to the dealer, so I can plan out my trip to Colorado to pick the car up. And so then I planned out a road trip, driving the car back from Colorado all the way to the Bay Area. And that's where I am right now on my road trip. And there'll be a separate video about my experience and my adventure driving the car on an epic 1,300-mile road trip through all 4 seasons of weather and all different types of chargers. So in conclusion, I wanted to give you the 3 tips that I would think about if you have car problems with especially a new car that would be under the state's lemon laws or certainly under warranty. I think the first is to know something about your car and to know when you think something is wrong, and do not hesitate to take it to the dealer. When you do take it to the dealer, be assertive and tell them something's wrong with your car and you want them to take a look at it, and do not let them say everything's fine or we updated the software or we cleared the codes and here's the car back. Be assertive and let the dealer know that you can do a search on Reddit or the internet a lot faster and better than they can tell you an excuse to give you your car back. Step number 2 is to call up the customer support, especially for a Hyundai vehicle, if you do have it in the dealer and it looks like it's going to be a fair amount of time to fix the car. If you know your state's lemon laws, if it starts to be something that you think will fall outside of the lemon law and make it eligible for a potential lemon law claim, I would definitely start calling Hyundai customer service so that you can start a case, have someone put pressure on the dealer, and also so that you can get any costs that you have in getting the car repaired under warranty and returned to you, those incidental costs, you can have those reimbursed. And I think my third tip is that if you have problem with your car that's serious enough to fall under the state's lemon laws otherwise, to request a buyback early on from Hyundai. It costs you nothing to request it, and in many cases, especially with these failures of the ICCUs, Hyundai is taking it as a given that if you have an ICCU failure within the lemon law period, that they're probably going to buy back your car. All right, I hope this video has shed some light on the whole experience that we have with our Ioniq 5, its ICCU failure, and the whole buyback process that we had with Hyundai. If you have any questions, throw them in the comments. I'm happy to try and answer them. And I'll see you on the next one.